She wasn't stealing. She was shopping, just like everybody else. But to the officers who observed her, her race would prove to be a sufficient cause for suspicion. In short order, curiosity became confrontation, and dignity gave way to handcuffs. The world witnessed a shoplifter. What they didn't realize was that the woman whom they shamefully pulled out into public humiliation had taken an oath to serve the very badge which had betrayed her. This wasn't just an arrest, it was a revelation. Because when justice wears blindfolds, who makes sure she can still see the truth? Her name was Captain Alana Reeves, an award-winning officer with almost 15 years of service, respected for her cool head in a crisis and her unobtrusive dedication to justice. Off-duty, however, she was simply Alana, a daughter, a sister, a woman who still texted her mother before every night shift and spent her weekends helping out a girls' youth center that wanted young women to be just like she was. That day had been typical. She'd gone to a corner store after the gym, still in streetwear, hair tied back, badge stashed in her bag. She navigated down the aisles without notice, scanning prices, reading labels, fitting into the mundane flow of normal existence. But in a world where sound can be greater than fact, not everybody viewed her through that lens. A pair of suspicious eyes tailed her up one aisle and down the next. Whispering began, subtle at first, then more pointed. In the distance, someone made a call. Suspicious behavior and potential theft began to form a narrative she had no idea was being crafted about her. When Alana finally got to the checkout line, she was still thinking about the message she had to text before she went home. She didn't hear the footsteps coming up behind her or the growing quiet around her. She didn't realize that the badge she wore with honor wouldn't be able to defend her today. Because in a matter of minutes, everything she fought for, the justice she believed in, would be used against her. The initial indication of trouble was the abrupt silence, the sort that buzzes in the atmosphere before the storm unleashes itself. Alana glanced up from her phone just as two police officers walked into the shop, their hands already resting close to their waistline. She hardly noticed them initially, until they focused on her. They didn't go near anyone else. Just her. "Ma'am, we need to talk to you," one of them told her, his voice hard, practiced. Folks around them claimed not to look, but there was an invasion of morbid curiosity. Alana's belly knotted up. She'd witnessed this scenario play out before, dozens and dozens of times, but always as the other one. Always as the one coming in to assist, to intervene, to pacify. Today, she was the one under observation. Judgment. "Whatever is this about?" she asked, but the question hadn't even left her mouth before one of the officers moved closer, eyeing her shopping bag as though skullduggery could be read upon sight. Another spoke quietly into his radio. She heard snippets, possible theft, non-compliant, send backup. Her heart raced. The conditioning that had held her steady in times of crisis instructed her to remain calm, to comply. But under that control lay an ache of disbelief. Is this actually happening to me? When she went for her ID, the officer closest to her jumped quickly, too quickly, pinching her wrist as if she was going for a gun. Gasps spread through the crowd. A kid began to wail. Someone raised a phone to film. "Don't move," the officer snapped, although she hadn't. The hold on her arm grew tighter. She ached to scream her truth, to inform them she was one of them, a captain in her department. But something within her locked up. Would it even matter? Would they accept her? Or would she sound yet one more excuse they'd already made up their minds not to hear? Another officer grabbed her bag and started ripping things out onto the counter. Protein bars, bottled water, a pack of gum. The cashier shook her head, muttering, she paid for those. But she was overpowered by the weight of authority. Flashing lights painted the windows red and blue outside. The backup had arrived. Each step closer to the door weighed her down. The cuffs snapped home, metal scraping against her skin. A sound she'd heard 1,000 times, now bracingly clear. She saw herself for an instant in the glass. Her sweats, her shaking hands, her own face reflected back in shock. Onlookers gawked as she was escorted out. Some recorded, others murmured. A couple turned away, embarrassed but quiet. She wished to vanish. Instead, She stood in the parking lot center as officers recited her rights, the same words she once had spoken so proudly. Only now did they ring hollow, a shadow of justice no longer familiar. And still, she remained silent, because some of her needed to witness it, to learn how quickly a life could be distilled into suspicion, how swiftly a narrative could be revised when the world refused to recognize the uniform under her skin. As she sat in the patrol car's back seat, the suffocating weight of irony pressed against her breast. She wasn't concerned with her reputation, or her badge, or even the shame. She was thinking about every person who'd ever said, maybe they should have just cooperated. And for the first time, she realized some truths can't be understood until you're the one with the cuffs on. The drive to the station seemed to take an eternity, each second drawn out taut between outrage and incredulity. Alana remained quiet, wrists searing against cold metal, as the officers in the front compartment joked about making an example. They didn't so much as glance back. They didn't notice her name embroidered inside her bag. They didn't notice the badge she had worked for with years of dedication, discipline, and service, lying inches from their blindness. When they got there, the indignity was compounded. Cameras followed as she was escorted out through the station doors, the same doors she'd passed 1,000 times before. Except this time, nobody said hello. No salutes, no nods, nothing. Just the blanks of people's faces. A few officers looked up from their desks, incredulity spreading like flames. Then someone breathed softly. Wait, is that Captain Reeves? The room changed. One of the younger officers got up, eyes wide, immediately recognizing her. Sir, that's... But too late. The handcuffs were already removed, the damage already inflicted. The laughter ceased. The face of the arresting officer went white as reality descended upon him. She said nothing. She didn't need to. Her silence was enough. The stunned look on her face, the betrayal, the anguish of finding out that the badge she'd fought to uphold for so long hadn't shielded her from the one thing it couldn't take away, her skin color. No one moved for what felt like an eternity. The station, once a second home, was suddenly alien, cold, unfamiliar. An officer stuttered an apology, but the words sounded weak, brittle, worthless. The world beyond didn't observe their remorse. It only witnessed the picture of a black woman, handcuffed, humiliated, and robbed of her dignity, all because someone believed she didn't belong. Alana gazed at them for the final time, her voice calm, eyes unflinching. This, she whispered, is why people don't trust us. And with that, she walked away, leaving the room thick with the type of silence that reveals truth more than words ever would. Because in that instant, every individual there understood something horrifying. Justice hadn't failed by mistake. It had failed on purpose. In the next few days, Captain Alana Reeves was the headline she never wanted. The arrest video played on every screen, shared, discussed, analyzed. News outlets referred to it as a miscommunication. Statements were issued. Apologies were made. But nothing could erase what occurred in that store, or the silence that ensued until the truth became viral. She went back to work weeks later, the same uniform creased and clean, but something within her had been transformed. Every corridor she passed down vibrated with echoes, of gazes, of whispers, of apologies made too late. Her badge still gleamed, but no longer did it serve as armor. It served as a mirror, showing her a system that had failed her even as it named her one of its own. And still, she didn't give up. She couldn't. So she started talking at schools, at precincts, at conferences about what it was like to be both guardian and target in the same sentence. She didn't speak angrily. She spoke honestly. And that made people uncomfortable, as truth tends to do. Because her tale wasn't hers alone, it was one of every individual condemned before they were heard. Every newspaper headline written before the truth. Every instance where injustice took the place of bias. Alana's arrest was overturned, but the taint of that day would never truly disappear. And perhaps that is what it should be. Perhaps it shouldn't. For behind every isolated incident is a system. Behind every apology, a question we continually refuse to answer. How many more times will we confuse color with guilt? and silence with peace. The cameras have gone, but her story remains a reminder that justice isn't real until it's equal. And respect means nothing if it's based on the color of your uniform or your skin.